in the beginning. Obviously excited to be back at it. And it's a fun time of the year. You know, I think it's good to see some energy in the building. Players had a couple of days off for them to be back. And then obviously as a staff, as an organization, to be kind of running at full speed ahead here as we approach an exciting time of the year. You know, before we get going here, you know, Joey Knight's not with us from the Tampa Bay Times. He had surgery, so he's in our thoughts and prayers. Obviously, hopefully he'll be back with us here soon. But all right, I'm gonna let you guys get to it here. We do have one thing. We'll give you a little bit of an injury update, and then obviously, you know, we'll have an injury report once we get to week 3 and are playing in the conference. But you guys will be able to be there for practice. I'm going to give you a little bit of a summary here, and then we'll try to keep it status quo from that point forward. But we have a handful of players that are going to be modified, that'll be limited early in camp. DJ Lagway, Tavares Dice, Pup Howard, Khalil Jackson, and Trayon Webb. All those players are a little bit modified here in our day-to-day as they're in return to play. So we are positive. We have positive attitude towards where they're headed and their opportunity to get back here shortly. Questions?
We could ask you about DJ. What's the concern level for him, and how much do you think he's going to be able to do in these?
Yeah, I think he'll be. I mean, again, he's day-to-day. The good thing is that I think we're about a week removed, you know, so in general, he's made a lot of quick progress, but it will be something that we're monitoring, and hopefully as we go, his ability to participate in practice will be a little bit more each opportunity that we get going forward.
You didn't put Aaron Gates in that list, so how have you seen him kind of maybe embrace the rehab process from last year, and how available do you anticipate him?
Yeah, no, Aaron's on schedule. Obviously still in the brace a little bit. And, you know, anytime a guy's an ACL guy, as you get into training camp, we'll be monitoring his volume closely. But he's been a full participator here as of late. But, you know, those guys are typically, there'll be a day or two where we'll pull him. But, yeah, he's had an incredible road back. I think has been a really good example to everybody of how you attack the rehab process, and looks great. So obviously a really good player for us.
Billy, you've been able to build your roster for the most part by ground up with your own guys. You haven't gone wholesale into the transfer portal. Would you talk about the process of doing that?
Yeah, I do think that's one of the exciting things about this team. You know, I think we look around the room, I think we've got 6 or 7 guys from the original group. I think there was a commitment to recruiting big groups of high school players in the beginning. I think my opinion is that player retention is extremely important. We've got a lot of players that are in year 2, 3, 4 in this program, these systems, offense, defense, and special teams. And when I look around the room, I see individuals that I have, you know, extensive experience with, going all the way back to the recruiting process. So know their story, have been to their schools, have sat in their homes, know their parents. And they chose us to some degree as well, right? So I think, you know, it's a positive in that regard. Now we've had a good off season and we've got a good roster coming back, but now it's time to go perform. And this next month will be about doing that.
3 and 4 year relationships that you've had, that you've been able to build. Would you talk about how important that is?
I think that college football, the onboarding process of rookie players is really important. And when you have veteran players that have a good understanding of expectations and know what you want and can be a good example to young players, I think that's really important. And I think we've benefited from that. I thought last year's team benefited from that, and I think this year's been probably 2 or 3 times as impactful because there's strength in numbers, and I think we have that.
You talked a ton about how beneficial the bye week was last year to the turnaround of this team. Is there anything from what happened during that week? I mean, Tyler was in here just talking about players lead in indie periods, and is there anything that you learned from that time last year that you're implementing here in fall camp?
Yeah, I think just the ability for our players to be present, to make the practice environment as competitive as possible. And I think this group learned that the practice environment ultimately it's a huge factor in terms of what game day looks like, right? So one of the things we're trying to do this month is establish trust. Each individual has got to earn confidence himself. He's also trying to earn the confidence of the staff and the confidence of his teammates. And I think you do it right out there on the grass between the lines, right? So I think that's where you prove it to everybody that you can do your job, that we can trust you. And the more competitive environment that we have, the better. And I think ultimately we learned that last year in that open date.
How much do you feel for DJ in terms of, I know it's a minor thing, a minor setback, but this is a guy who wants to be healthy and wants to be out there for every snap, and he just keeps getting these little minor setbacks?
Yeah, no, I think, look, injuries are one of the tougher things about the profession, and certainly for him, being a year two player, and a really motivated and hungry guy, So I think he's done a good job staying connected. I think he still has a voice as a leader. He's still walking the halls. He's still able to be a factor in that regard. But, he's still a very young player and needs these reps for development as well. So, when he gets back, he'll be just fine. But, he's had a great attitude towards it, and I think we got to help him manage expectations a little bit as well. So, but in general, I think one day at a time, being present and executing the plan for each day. I think we got to help him with that.
How do you feel about Harrison's ability? He's in the talent around has just gotten increasingly better too. The offensive line, obviously the backfield, the perimeter guys.
Yeah, no, I think all of our quarterbacks have taken advantage of the reps. Aiden in particular, I think, has taken a big step in the right direction, and obviously Harrison being a veteran player. And then Trammell, we've seen him get healthy and more comfortable in the system. I think going back to the beginning of the install in the summer A, summer B. So that group, there's a ton of competition amongst that group there. And it's really, there's a little bit of a blessing here that we're going to get a chance to give those guys a ton of reps and see how they respond to that.
Sporting cast, what do you feel about just what you've been able to put together on that side of the ball? Both sides, but that side.
It's probably the best combination of personnel around the quarterback. I think you're spot on. I think the O-line obviously has played a lot of football. And really the two deep up front, I would say. I like that group. I think the two tight ends have played a lot of football, and Hayden and Tony, and then Jaden and Jacoby obviously are very experienced and proved themselves last year. So we've got a group of new receivers to add to the ones that we have coming back. So there's some stability around the quarterback, and I think that's a big piece of the puzzle.
How have you seen that grow physically and mentally on both lines of scrimmage, offense and defense, from when, 2 years ago you played them and they kind of took their knocks, and now they're older and more mature and so forth?
Yeah, no, some of those guys were, this is year 4, to some degree, some year 3. Austin and Jake obviously were, they're 2 of the 6 or 7 that were here when we first got here, and they've improved each cycle, and obviously are in position, had great senior campaigns. And then Najee and Damian both have played a lot of football, and here comes Bryce Lovett, who was a part of that first recruiting class that we had. And then the depth behind those is something that maybe we haven't had. I think we've got some players that are in year 2 and 3 in that 2 deep that I think are in position, to be a factor.
As much as this is DJ's team, so to speak, you have a ton of talent, especially at running back.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, I know you have to think about what if you don't have him.
Sure.
You have a lot of talent to run to run offense, especially the running back room. Talk about the other people on the squad,
Right.
especially the wide receivers, et cetera. You have a very balanced and a two-league football team that can cause problems for anybody.
Yeah, I think the big thing would be we're going to have to play complementary football regardless who's playing quarterback. I mean, if you do your homework here, 85% of the teams in our league, 85% of the time, the team is going to play with the two quarterback. It's just history's the best indicator of the future. And then we know that quality depth is critical. There's going to be weeks where we're missing 3 or 4, we're missing 6 or 7. And I think the depth is critical. It's a part of playing in this league, the physicality of the league, the level of depth within the league. And I think offensively we certainly have a really good, when you talk about the front paired with the big, long, physical, tight end group, the brand of ball that we were able to play down the stretch, I think we're in position to do that. So, look, quarterback play, and I've said this to you guys going all the way back to year one, right? I think is always indicative of how well people are playing around you, right? So I think we're always quick to give them the credit and quick to blame them at the same time, right? So I think we got a good surrounding cast on offense, and we got to go get them game ready, and I think ultimately that's the next month will present that opportunity.
First time in your.
Receiver, how have they developed from the spring?
It's a rowdy group.
Here we go.
Right, yeah.
We're gonna have a fight.
One more time, go ahead.
The young talent and receiver, just from the spring, some of the guys that came in early through the summer, where are they now? And, you've been at some place that has some really good young receivers come in. How do they compare to those groups?
Yeah, no, it's a deep competitive group. I'm excited about Aiden being back. I'm excited about Trey being healthy. And then you got some of these guys that flashed last year, Tank and TJ. No one talks about them, but they're coming along, and they're certainly part of the competition and in that battle. This is going to be, that's what the next month is about, is seeing who we can trust, who we can depend on, who can be consistent, who can play winning football. But, we really, if you think about it, there's 5 new players in that room that all have a chance to help our team. J. Mike and Dallas and Vernell, Nashon and Muiz. Muiz has had an outstanding summer. So, and look, this is about them developing confidence in themselves. Can we trust them as a coaching staff? Can their teammates trust them? And ultimately, they're going to earn that on the practice field.
This is the first time, in your 4-year tenure that you're not opening with a Power 4 conference opponent. Does that change camp at all, or how do you keep kind of the carrot in front of the stick there? And for
that's a good
as far
question.
as
Yeah, no, I do think. I think obviously Long Island's the next game we have, and the most important game. That's my coach speak for the day. But I would say that, one of the things I've learned is it is a big transition when school starts for these guys, and I think, we're tweaking our schedule a little bit to help them transition into 12 or 15 hours, new routine, new schedule, new processes for our staff. So we built our training camp blueprint in a way to kind of start gradually equipping our players for that transition, not only for the players but for the staff as well. But yeah, I think it definitely, if you think about not, your first conference game being in week 3, I think ultimately for me, I'm trying to evaluate what we need to do to get better each day, and knowing that we develop our team in the practice setting. But there's certainly some things about school starting that would be my the thing I would say that I've learned.
What went into trying to see if Olivier could block the kick and go in the
Man, I think me and Joe were just having lunch in the dining hall one day, and the guy walks by, and we're thinking about, man, what is the guy's reach, and then what's the guy's vertical jump relative to the block, launch point and the block spot. So we did a little bit of homework on that, and It's to be determined is what I would say.
How supportive was Coach Golden with that, though? With that?
Oh, he's great, yeah. We certainly talked to Coach about it before we did anything.
One more DJ question. Obviously, he was very limited in what he could do in the spring, limited to start camp. How concerned are you about this affecting his development, considering how important that is at the position at his age?
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal. I mean, in the perfect world, he would have been perfect every day of the offseason, right? So I think the good thing is his attitude towards it. I think that's a positive. And I think Coach O'Hara has done a good job of being creative. This room in particular, we've used quite a bit, going all the way back to when he first arrived. And then, just ways to keep him connected, keep him processing. We do a ton of things in our off-season program, and certainly OTAs this summer. He was able to take 1 million reps. We do some of that without a ball, some with the ball. So, look, he's in year 2. He I think, understands what's required to be ready. It's not ideal, but I think ultimately, we'll come up with the best plan we can to have him ready.
The defense, what do you see there? I mean, obviously there's some key guys that left, but it seems like a very talented unit. And you guys haven't finished really very high in the defensive statistics, but did come on really strongly at the end of last year. How do you carry that forward?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately, if you really take a good look at what we were able to do last year, a lot of the turnaround was playing better on defense. I think after the first month, probably Central Florida on, we played, good enough to win on defense outside of the Texas game. We're in position in Jacksonville. We're in position in Knoxville as a result of playing really good defense. I think we did a good job affecting the quarterback. We created takeaways, and we played good red zone defense, and we kept the point total in a place. So I think the depth is there, all 3 levels of the defense. We have some young players that we're going to have to develop in the secondary that don't have a ton of experience, but every other spot, I think there's a lot of players that have played football. The front, I'm excited about seeing the progress we can make with the second tier of players on defense in training camp. I think it's an important part of this puzzle.
Some of the guys that you just single out, like Kermani, we've seen the gains he's made in the weight room.
Right.
LJ McCray, Tyler
Sure.
Miles was kind of raving about him. Miles Graham seems like he could be a future star. I mean, he called him a superstar. Tyreek Sapp said he could be.
Right.
What do you see in those 3 guys in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me it's, when I think about our defense, I think about building depth in the secondary, working contingency plans. Who's the 4th corner, who's the 4th, 5th, 6th safety. We've got to develop these 2 young backers, and build some depth there at that position. And then, after, Banks and Mackay, who else has played some significant snaps in a game? BT, Brendan Bett, Tavares Brown. And then the rookies obviously have a chance to impact the team. Mbachu, McLeod, Woods, so how much can we get, how many guys can we get ready to play winning football on that side of the ball? We're going to need them, so I think that's the important part of training camp. And look, we've been working on these things since January, so it's go time now, right? So I think it's time for them to go prove it.
What about those guys, though, like Kermani?
LJ,
these are 5-star recruits that,
Yeah, they're in position to impact the team. I mean, I think Cormani has taken the feedback and tried to get better. He needs to become a better tackler. I think the weight room helps that. His physicality, his play strength. Obviously, he's got to be a better communicator, and he's got to have a thorough understanding of the playbook. Right now, this guy, there's growth. It's time to do it. So LJ's in a similar. LJ got some experience last year, so it's time for him to take a big jump, and we need him to. And he has position flex. at Jack and F. I think he can play both spots. LJ, I think, did a great job of taking the feedback from the weight room and nutrition from the spring semester, really bought in that regard, and changed his body comp. And he's starting to look like a guy who's ready to play in this league and be a factor. So, who was the third player?
Miles Graham, which we
Yeah.
already kind of saw flashes of him pretty strongly.
Yeah, I think you saw that Miles is unique in his ability to play as a rookie. Obviously, Miles is in a position where he's got to communicate. There's going to be more snaps on his plate. And then obviously he's got a leadership role, and I think he's got the traits to be a really good leader. So there's character there where he can be a steady example for the other players. But we got a lot that fit into just like those three you mentioned. I think there's a bunch of those stories.
How beneficial is it that Miles has been doing some stuff at Mike with pup out, just getting some experience there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had opportunities to work a lot of combinations of players at that position. And, you think about getting the best two out there that are available. But, yeah, I mean, who's got the green dot on? I think, if we play dime, who can play Mac, and, third down, those types of scenarios, 2 minutes. So, look, Miles is a guy who has there's a big toolbox there, and I think we need to create opportunities for him to impact the game. But like you say, what position that is, I think we need to continue to grow the depth at that position.
You've addressed this before, but one more time, how did you arrive at spot the ball?
Yeah, I think it was really more of a mentality that was created last year during the season. I think that the verbiage there actually came from our weight room. And I think the players, bought into it. And I think, we obviously we get asked about our schedule around here every 2 or 3 days, right? So I think, I want our team to understand that we can go toe-to-toe with anybody. I think last year's team proved that, and then we have to get this team ready to do that, right? So I think that term to me, when I did that, was a little bit of a reminder to our team that it's right around the corner, right? And we have work to do to get ready for those opportunities. But the games will be won between the lines when we spot the ball, right? So,
Challenge, sort of like bring it on, is that kind of what that means?
yeah, I mean, I think we want our players to have that type of mentality.
With that said, expectations can be tricky, and getting guys to be where their feet are also tough. Do you even mention college football playoff, or do you completely ignore that stuff when you meet with them to start the season?
No, we absolutely have aspirations to be a playoff team. That's the intention of coming here, is to win championships. Now, what do we know about that? It's about the work we do. It's about today. Okay, it's not about yesterday or tomorrow. It's about today, right? A good today leads to a good week, leads to a good month, leads to a good season, and you look up and count them up at the end of the year. And I think for us, it's about getting the most out of this group, right? It's the best thing about coaching football is the challenge of taking, okay, I'm a position coach. I'm going to take this player or this position group and get the most. I'm the coordinator. I got this unit. How can we get the most out of this group? And for me, it's the team and organization as a whole, right? So I think for us, we know that the results will be a product of really buying into the process, being present, stacking good days, and creating habits that will hold up on game day. So we've got a lot of guys that need to establish that we can trust them in this next month to present that opportunity.
Billy, Russ said that how the offense has evolved is that now you have more players that you can get the ball to. Would you talk about how you see how the offense has evolved since you've come here?
Yeah, I think we probably have more players that we would plan around. I think one of the things we've been able to do is take the 3 or 4 skill guys that we've had and really be creative and get them the ball. I think we have more of those on that list now, which is a good thing. So, you build your system around what the quarterback can do and what he does well, and then you build it around the skill players that you have. And I think that's the fun part of coaching, is building that identity. And look, it's got to It's got to be flexible enough to win every week, depending on the opponent, the strengths and weaknesses of that week. But I like the pieces that we have. We certainly, there's more of them, and that's a good thing.
What's the next step for Jaden Baugh? I think Tyler was in here saying that he's pound for pound, the strongest player he's ever seen,
Yeah, freaky numbers. I mean, I think all the testing is, but look, I think, my challenge to Jaden is to control the things that he can control. Talent, I go back to the really big emphasis to me is like, look, if you're sitting in that room, if you've got a locker down there, you got talent. Okay, you wouldn't be at the University of Florida, but it's about doing all the things that require no talent, right? Can you buy into this idea that your unlimited improvement when it comes to your skill set, your toughness and resilience, your football intelligence, and then what type of teammate you are, and I think for him, he's got a bright future in the game, but he's done a good job of improving all these areas that have nothing to do with physical talent, and I think he's a great teammate. He's a leader, and I think we want to continue to challenge him to be that, So, look, you want to have a good team. Some of your better players have got to kind of walk around setting the standard. We're challenging him to do that.
How much does it help to have a player like Jacoby behind him too, kind of pushing him also?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Look, there's guys on this team. Some of my favorite players are the guys that were unheralded, right? Like that literally came from the bottom to the top. Jacoby Jackson, George Gums. You want to write two stories? You write those stories. Those two guys are no stars. Okay, I mean, I don't even know if they have a profile. Okay, but they're two of our best players, and they're two of our kind of set the bring an edge to them to prove themselves. I think they've done that, and they're better competitors and teammates as a result of that. So both of those guys are good examples. Certainly Jacoby rubs off on Jaden. And think about Jaden got here last year and was able to observe a guy like Jacoby and the way he worked, the way he practiced, his attitude, his energy. Those two guys are some of our better teammates and players.
Tyreek Sapp, he said he wanted the O-line to hate practice. You talked about competitiveness. How is that kind of built? You see the passion in practice. How's that built throughout your years here?
Yeah, it's one of the most important things to build in a team is having a competitive practice environment where the game is not too fast for you. I think Sapp is one of our best practice players, right? He's consistent, his energy, his attitude, and there's no doubt that they'll tell you the guy's tough to block, right? And then look at the production on the field and look at the life he lives every day, right? I mean, Sapp's the same guy every day. He's one of the best edge players in the country as a result of the way he lives life and the way that he approaches the work. So Sapp's a great story as well, just in terms of his journey and how much better that guy's got every cycle. I mean, this guy went out there. I mean, this is year 6, if I'm not mistaken, and he's got, I think he gained 8 or 9 pounds of lean muscle again, right? I mean, the guy he's jumping higher, running faster. So he's in position to maximize coming back and a guy that sets the tone. So it wouldn't surprise me if those O-linemen don't like him.
Two more.
Curious about Asa Turner's status with the team. I know he got the 7th year, he's not on the roster. What is he with the program right now?
Yeah, so Asa's transitioning out of football. He's had really 3 years of significant injuries in college football. I actually met with Asa this morning. Look, Asa did a great job when he got here and was, a really big contributor earlier in the season, got injured, and then hasn't quite been the same guy. And if you really look at Washington the last couple of years, so, Asa contributed to our team last year. I'm very thankful for the way he approached being a teammate, his attitude, but he's at a point where he's not going to play.
Billy, do you feel differently entering this year than the previous 3? I mean, it's been tumultuous at times for sure, and put together this roster and have some continuity in some key places on the staff. Do you just feel differently, optimistically, or comfort level, confidence level?
Yeah, I mean, I like the people that we have in our building. I think, look, you can have a phenomenal offseason. You can have great, you can be in position and have a great roster, but you got to go put the ball down and play, you know. So I think reality is that we've got to go earn it on the field, you know, and I think ultimately I'm focused on getting this team ready to do that. So I love the intangibles of the group. You know, there's a lot of height, length, and speed, and guys that there's experience, but it's about getting our veteran players to play their best football, and then we have quite a few of these younger players that we need to continue to grow and develop, and we have to get consumed with improvement, and we got to get ready to go play winning football, and I think that's a process, right? We can run all summer. Football condition and football execution is different, and I think that's what this month is about.
What about you personally? You sleeping a little easier? You more comfortable, confident in this position? I mean, because again, I mean, there's been a lot of, tumultuous moments during your tenure to this point.
Yeah, no, I love the challenge. This is this is a challenge worth pursuing, you know. And I think I wouldn't rather do it with anybody else. I like the group that I'm getting to do it with. And look, you know, we're about a month away. We'll crank this thing up, but we got a lot of work to do between now and then.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.